and welcome to episode number 310 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. I'm Carlos, and I am not in the PTUK studios this evening. I am in my own PTUK office studio this evening. But in today's show, there's good news as Cathay Pacific start adding flights to their UK. There's bad news as the UK's Chancellor increases air passenger duty. And there's good news as Easyjet releases their winter schedule. In the military news this week, NASA is building its Supersonic X-plane out of old Warbirds, and two futuristic-looking aircraft will compete to replace the Army's Black Hawk. Nev shares with us his return flight to Newcastle as Nev's passenger experience makes a welcome return, and he also takes a turn in an A320 Simulator in Cambridge. But we have to welcome the guy who is in the studio all on his own this week. So hello to you, Matt Smith.
Lonely, I am so lonely. I have nobody. Oh, I'll stop
You've
singing.
You've got gin.
Yeah, I have. I tell you what, yes. I'm not going to lie, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a very strange week for most of us here in the UK. And I'm actually in the studio, all on my lonesome. And I have a very nice, I think it's, I think I'll get correct. I think it was a unicorn gin here. So cheers. Bottoms up, everyone. What's the worst that can happen?
Also joining us from his luxury studios in Buckinghamshire, it is, of course, the legend that is Neville Bounds.
Yes, here I am. Surprisingly, I've made it back from Newcastle on Wednesday, which will be my last flying for some considerable time, I think. So we'll see how we get on with that. And then there'll be more info about that later on, I'm sure.
Well, quite, yes.
Bit of PTUK themed tunage going on in my ears right now, but I'm sure Matt will sort that out.
Right, okay, sorry. I wonder
also,
why it had all gone terribly quiet. Hang on, there we go. Let's try that. How's that, ladies and gentlemen? There we go.
That's better. I can now hear.
Excellent. Sorry.
So, making everything in the world military sound just awesome. Welcome back to the show this week. He's been away, but he's been on and he's been away and he's been on and he's been away. But he's back this week in the flesh. It's Armando.
Hi guys, it is really, really nice to be back on the show
that's
live
what he
in
looks
person.
Like. Oh,
yeah. You know, I thought you guys were getting tired of those pre-recorded segments and videos.
Yeah, I must admit.
This is like you are actually there, aren't you, Armando? This is not a recorded one, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it was great being. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's nice to be back in the home studio here.
He's wearing a baseball cap. He hasn't done that for a few weeks either.
Yeah, baseball cap and representing Ramp Rat Racing as we ramp up for Reno 2020 if it's going to happen. Hopefully it'll happen, but that's Joe Coraggio, number 611.
Excellent. Well, it's good to have you back. There. Good to have you back, Armando. How are things across the pond then, Armando, with the current wonderful situation it is?
Well, let's see, on the work front, I think I told you guys last week, it was largely empty flights. The airports are largely empty. So just like the rest of the world, I think our aviation industry is being affected by this coronavirus. Bing! Everybody take a drink.
Take a drink.
Sorry, hang on. One moment, caller. Yeah. I'm not used to these drinking games. It's a bit alien to me. One moment, caller. As you
carry on.
There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, I think we're going to talk about it at length today, how it's affecting the aviation industry for one, but here just in our own little family, just like everybody else, just like in Europe and like most of the rest of America, we are pretty much locked into the house. So lots of family time. We get to spend a lot of time with Maddie and ourselves and our dogs and just kind of hanging around the house. And I don't think we're in such dire straits as other people have appeared on the news. You know, we still have toilet paper. We still have plenty of food.
Toilet paper? Get you.
Yeah. So we're
what a luxury.
I guess living it up.
Oh, I say. I mean, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't really say this, and this is terribly inappropriate for anyone who might be eating their tea right now. But it's like, of all the things to be panic buying, bearing in mind the fact that you're going to be locked down in your home if this all gets a bit out of hand, why is the one thing that you're panic buying toilet roll? Because, you know, first of all, none of the symptoms have ever said anything about you know, essentially getting the runs as a result of said illness. Why toilet roll? I mean, it's like if you ran out of it, you could just have a shower. You're at home.
Well, not to mention a good 1/3 of the world doesn't use toilet tissue.
Right.
So,
okay.
I mean,
I've been to those countries.
There
yes.
are ways to do it.
There are. Yes, absolutely.
Do you think, though, that all those people in the UK who, over the last 12 months, brought a house that had a bidet in, and all their friends and family going, "Oh, your house has got a bidet, and when are you going to take that out?" Now they're going, "Yes, we've got a bidet."
Yeah.
Well, now we've all got plenty of time to make a do-it-yourself kit.
It's just like all these people who have been stuck in the 70s are suddenly really excited because they still have their bidet. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Actually,
let's give the listeners a respite from it, huh?
Yeah, just going to the chat room actually, if I may, for a moment. And
you may.
Obviously, Nev mentioned earlier that there was a flight that he was on, obviously going to Newcastle and stuff. And Neil Braden in the chat room saying Neville knows this already, but there were only 45 passengers on my A330 Seattle to Dublin Aer Lingus flight on Tuesday. I mean, those are crazy numbers, really, aren't they?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going back to work on Sunday, and I was looking at the flights, and I think there was 14 people booked on an A320 from Charlotte to Pittsburgh. So should have a pretty easy commute for the next
well, there is that. There is always that thing. And of course, we've mentioned the infamous flight to Newcastle that and back that Nev just did. And I believe, Nev, I'm going to have to play this for you because I think very much congratulations are in order here. Because said flight did something rather amazing to your status, did it not?
Yes.
I was hoping you were going to play a Spandau Ballet song then, Matt.
Oh, I see what you did
I
there.
see what you did there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, I managed to get my only gold card ever from British Airways 2 days before the whole sort of lockdown started. So whether I'll do any flying in the next 12 months in order to keep it going, I don't know, but we'll have to see, won't we?
Oh, dear. Oh, Mash is one of the I don't know if I dare read it out, but we're going back to what we were talking about. Mash's comment in the chat room says, "I'm going Roman. I have a sponge on a stick." Read into that what you will.
Well, the Dutch are very creative.
They are. They
experience.
are an ingenious species, are they not? Absolutely. We probably should do some aviation news, shall we?
I know. It is the 20th of March. And
Oh, come on.
it's
horrible out there. We've got to have a laugh, haven't we?
I know. And we will. We've got plenty to laugh about on the show. So it is coming up to 8 minutes past 7 in the evening. A big welcome to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. All the family members in there. Just a quick run through the list because Auntie Liz is in there. Obviously keeping an eye on things. We've got Masha. We've also got Tanya W. Hello to you, Tanya. Neil Braden. Stephen Howland. Hello to you, Stephen. Dave Abbey. Hello to you, Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Benjamin Todd. The Airstig, hello to you, Airstig. Airstig, he keeps me well in check on the P2K.
Good, I'm
WhatsApp.
glad someone does.
And who else we got? Neil Braden, hello to you, Neil Braden. And just scrolling back up. Neville Barnes is in there, obviously you've got to say hello.
Never heard of him. Who?
So welcome to everyone who's joined us tonight. So we've got lots to get through. And lots of laughs to have, and lots of beer to drink. So we're going to start the show then, as we do this week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So I'm ready. Are you guys ready?
Born ready.
Ready to go.
So kicking off this week's first news story on the Forbes.com website. Always sounds a bit posh, that website, the Forbes.com website. So this one is headlines, Cathay Pacific are now adding flights to UK, US as Hong Kong has coronavirus under control. Well, Good on you guys. Cathay Pacific, Hong Kong's largest airline, has been one of the travel companies hit hardest by the outbreak of COVID-19. I didn't say the C word then, just a different one. So no drinking yet, guys. Hong Kong's proximity to the worst affected country of China meant that demand to the country dropped dramatically on the onset of COVID-19. However, Hong Kong has used sensible strategies to contain the outbreak of the COVID-19 thing from the onset, and officially
everybody keeps reaching for their drinks here. Come on. You're going to have to say it in a minute because we want to see it.
Okay. Officially reported just 105 cases of the virus with 2 fatalities. Hong Kong is now being seen as an example to the rest of the world to follow. Very little panic has occurred in Hong Kong despite contending with the outbreak of the virus for months. Cathay Pacific cancelled as much as 75% of flights at one point, but now the airline is setting a positive precedent for the rest of the aviation community that has grounded fleets and cancelled flights worldwide. The airline has reinstated some flights to the US and increased capacity on other routes. And Cathay Pacific is touting increased Easter demand and overseas residents wanting to return home to see family. A statement from the company said that as a home carrier of Hong Kong, Cathay Pacific understands that many Hong Kong students and citizens in North America and London are eager to come home as soon as possible in time for the Easter break. Cathay Pacific have re-added a daily flight to both New York and Boston in the US between March 19th to the 21st, and upgraded the size of the aircraft on the Seattle and San Francisco routes from an A350-900 to the larger A350-1000. The airline is also reinstating CX254 from London on March the 19th. Hopes are that the increase in capacity and demand are a positive sign for the airline and the industry as a whole. So, possible good news?
Well, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
And Cathay, if anyone's going to do it right, these guys are going to do it right. Hong Kong is still on my bucket list of places to go to in the world.
Me too, yeah. Absolutely. By the way, I know everybody's got backdrops, obviously, because nobody's in the studio this week, but I would just like to say, actually, the backdrop that I've got behind me, let me just pop it up in full for you, very kindly sent to us by Russell Prendergast, created in 2016 from a combined set of images from a static position in Clock Lane near Birmingham, which is really cool, where they've all been laid together like that. I mean, I'd like to think that no flights would ever actually fly that close together in real life.
Now, wouldn't that be one hell of an air show?
That'd be a hell of a fly past, never mind anything else. But yeah, so thank you, Jack. Thanks for sending that in. That's a great picture, that is. I dread to think, I mean, I'm rubbish at things like Photoshop and things, but that must take ages to create something like that.
So, Matt, the next story for you is a nice story.
Is it? Okay, I'll be the judge of that. This is on. So it actually came from LinkedIn. It's a story we found while we were doing the research from there. And basically, long story short, is that the Dublin Girls' School invited to Ryanair's HQ. I'm sorry, it's failed to open. So just give me a moment. Oh, don't tell me things are going wrong here in the studio. Are we still online?
No. Are Ryanair having to charge you to open a story about
Possibly, yes, absolutely. Anyway, part of International Women's Day, that's all right, we're all away, in 2020. The students from a local Dublin's girls' school were invited into Ryanair's HQ, and they wanted to introduce them to women in the airline and to inspire them to pursue a career in aviation. At the beginning of the presentation, the students were asked to hold up cards to see what gender they instinctively associated with certain professions and to ask why this is the case. After hearing from women in positions typically dominated by males in the aviation industry, the students were again asked to hold up gender cards. The cards that were blue at the beginning of the presentation had now changed to pink. We're hoping to highlight some of these women in aviation to inspire the next generation, which is it's a great thing to do, actually, isn't it? To sort of to get invites to places like this is quite difficult, isn't it? it's also sort of Aer Lingus have been doing something along similar lines, and they appointed Red Sea to conduct research to investigate why applications to its cadet programs among women were so low. So we discovered that males are still more likely to consider STEM subjects. The role of a pilot is discussed with males considerably more than females in schools and colleges. We found that 19% of males and 8% of females discuss it with career guidance counsellors, and that's when asking female respondents why being a pilot isn't a career, 35% said it's because it was not being brought to their attention as a possibility in school or college. And I think really that's the only way that you're going to change attitudes, isn't it, in regards to women wanting to be either pilots or engineers or whatever it is, is actually making it sort of, right at the start of your education to sort of feel that, anything's possible, I guess. But, a great story, a feel-good story from Ryanair. Who'd have thought that was possible?
Don't you think this year? I know this year has been a bit.
It's been a bit poo, yeah.
Bit poo this year, but don't you think this year, in regards to promoting not just pilot training, but promoting the whole kind of industry for young people especially, to join. They've been doing a lot more, I think. The airlines.
Yeah, I couldn't. I wouldn't disagree with you there.
Yeah, definitely.
I was having a conversation with Megan about this just last night, and I think through its history, aviation has always been a male-dominated industry.
Agreed.
However, I think though aviation was also one of the first industries or technologies to embrace women. And if you just do a cursory search and go back to the beginning, to the Wright brothers, there are plenty of women who were so important in aviation, especially in those early days of aviations in the 1910s, 1920s. You have obviously Amelia Earhart was the bulk of the notoriety for women in aviation, but we were just reading a book about Beryl Markham, the West with the Wind book, and how she grew up in Kenya, and she had her flying adventures. But when I was a cadet in the Civil Air Patrol, we were always studying the contributions of women in aviation. And if you go back to the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, there are I think compared to a lot of other industries, there are a lot of women that have just contributed so much to it, and they just don't get enough credit, obviously, because we don't know their names unless you study it or you're in the industry or something like that. But while it is male dominated, I think aviation has embraced women from the very, very beginning.
I completely agree with you, Armando. My only concern is that you've only got to look at the percentages where, quite often we're looking at single figure percentages for, women who are, actually active flying pilots as opposed to, much, much higher percentages for the men. I mean, what can you do you think? What is the answer to sort of making it a much more level playing field across all genders?
My opinion is exactly this. It's these outreach programs to young women, and especially now that there's such a big push for science, technology, engineering, and math, so the STEM subjects. So you include aviation in those STEM subjects. We're trying to get more women engineers. We're trying to get more women mathematicians and everything. And you just include aviation into that, and just like Ryanair is doing. We've never said that on the show before. Just like Ryanair is doing, and British Airways. I think we've done some.
I'm so glad I was sat down for that.
Yeah, right. I think British Airways does it. A lot of airlines do it where. Especially during Women's History Month, they go out and they do these outreach programs and they try to get women into aviation. And to be honest, I've said it before on this show, some of the best pilots I fly with and I've met are women pilots. They're, Jody Ruger, who was on the show, I followed her. I've gotten a chance to get to know her over the last couple of years. Unbelievable that it's been over a year since we had her on the show, but she's an amazing example, right? She takes young girls up for aerobatic rides. She does her own outreach programs through her air show circuit. So that's it. It's just get the word out. We'll continue to do it on the podcast and do our little part.
I mean, one thing that's appeared in the chat room here from Matt Bunting Frame was saying it might be due to post World War II having an abundance of males in the time of the boom, possibly. Is it? I mean, you think obviously post World War II, that is essentially where, like aviation as we know it really became a thing. Do you know what I mean? It's where it became such a popular thing. Perhaps that's got something to do with it. I don't know. I think
up to World War II and maybe even the 60s and the 70s, a lot of the world subscribed to gender roles. There was prescribed gender roles for in the house, in the workplace, in the industry, and World War II is a great example of that, right? The WASPs and the Women Air Service, those guys don't get nearly the recognition they should. They kept the Air Force running. They kept the military running.
Definitely.
But I think now as we continue to break down those gender roles and recognize that everybody is capable of doing everything, I think that's the way to it's just an evolution. So we'll continue on this evolution.
Yeah. Fingers
I'm
crossed.
off my high horse.
Right. Very good. Well done.
So Nev, obviously in the UK, we've just dropped our interest rates to the lowest they've ever been ever. But this next story, Nev, doesn't reflect that at all.
No, I mean, the only thing I would say about this is this story was written on the 11th of March, straight after the budget here in the UK. So treat this with a little bit of pinch of salt, I would say, at the moment, because the things are going to be changing here, I would say. This is on the which.co.uk website, and it says, despite speculation and calls from the travel industry, there's been little change to air passenger duty in the budget. With coronavirus negatively affecting many airlines, the travel industry has been heavily speculating that Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak, would cut APD by at least 50% by the end of the year. Many airlines have been required to cancel flights to Italy and China, and the rest, obviously, by now.
Yeah.
UK airline Flybe collapsed earlier in the month after a bailout plea was rejected. Instead, on the APG on long haul, APD, bit of a slip there, wasn't it? APD on long haul flights will rise with inflation for most flights by a few pounds from the 1st of April. Airlines can pass this increase on to customers, subject to booking conditions. The government has promised that a consultation to reform APD will take place this spring. So which explains what's changing and how the move will affect the cost of your holiday. Well, first of all, what is air passenger duty? Well, it's levied by the UK government on all outbound passenger flights from the UK. It was launched in 1994, and whilst some claim it has environmental benefits by discouraging air travel, not. The estimated 3.7 billion the Treasury raises from it in the last financial year suggests the government benefits too. APD is charged at 3 rates. And differs by short and long haul. Short haul flights are those from the UK to a country with a capital city, less than 2,000 miles from London. Long haul flights are those distances greater than this. So roughly, short haul covers flights to most of Europe, some of North Africa and Greenland. So the 3 tiers are reduced, which is charged in the lowest class available in economy with a seat pitch of less than 40 inches. Standard, charged in any other class where seat pitches are more than 40 inches, and higher, charged on planes carrying fewer than 19 passengers, which are typically private jets. There's no APD charged on direct long-haul flights departing from Northern Ireland or flights from airports in the Scottish Highlands and Islands region. So how is it going to affect the holidaymakers, for example? Well, when you book a ticket, the APD is already included in the cost of your ticket. However, the government doesn't collect APD from airlines until after takeoff. So the small rise rise affecting long-haul flights in line with inflation will have little impact on flight prices. If you're already booked to fly after the 1st of April, be aware that airlines can charge you the increase, even though you've already paid for it. Its booking terms and conditions will make this clear when you've booked. The government is also consulting on reforms to APD, in the spring. It will consider the case for changing the APD treatment for domestic flights, such as reintroducing a return leg exemption and for increasing the number of international distance bands. So I think this is all very interesting, but I think it's actually been superseded by some of the announcements that's just been made today by the government regarding the coronavirus situation. And it would not surprise me at all if they review this, because frankly, nothing is flying, or very few things are flying at the moment. They're not going to get any revenue anyway. And all the revenue they have got, they're going to be dishing it out again for reasons which we've heard about on.
And even when this all does get sorted, people aren't, people are not going to have hundreds of thousands of pounds to spend on flights. They're going to need to be.
Actually, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel slightly different about it. Obviously, the announcements and stuff that were made today, I mean, it's not completely solving the issue, but actually, I can't see any reason why, certainly from an employee point of view, why we can't come out the other side of it and sort of still book our holidays. Interestingly, actually, we just had a comment come in on the chat room here from a chap by the name of James Russell. Good evening, James, thank you for watching. It says, evening all, currently day 5 on a 14-day isolation period. Oh dear, a lot of pressure here, chaps. He says, hopefully tonight's show can give me some sanity back. Right, so no pressure, gents.
No, I doubt that very much.
I think he's watching the wrong show, I'll be honest. But yes, well, thanks for joining us, James. Actually, I think this is a good time to mention, many people may have noticed that we're trying ourselves to put out a little bit more content as best we can over using our Facebook channel, I think, actually. Is that where you guys are posting? Is that
we
right?
are, yeah.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what we've decided is that we're going to try and every now and again we'll post something to let you know when we'll be on, and we'll each come on in our own kind of way and do a bit of a Q&A about the show. Gives everyone a chance to interact with me, Nev, and Armando as well. Obviously, Matt, he's in charge, so he doesn't have to take on this thing. But it gives everyone a chance who listens to the show to ask questions to us as hosts.
Actually,
So
we do have a question directed at you, Carlos, just come in from Benjamin Todd. Here we go. Can I ask a silly question? Flights are cheap now, obviously, for a reason, but do you think it would be far too risky to book a flight and take a trip somewhere and just sit on the beach all day over there? Ooh.
Do you know what? You can still get flights to places.
I mean, self-isolation in Malta is not really self-isolation, is it? Matt.
No. Do you know what? If someone said you've got to go and self-isolate in Malta now, even though it's not even summertime, give me that plane. I'm on it.
I'm going. Yeah, absolutely. Oh dear! Oh, come on, Nev. If you were in isolation, where would your location? You could go anywhere in the world and have to spend 14 days there, literally in self-isolation.
Probably, I think, Melbourne, Victoria in Australia would
really
be, as long as it was in the summertime,
Right. Okay.
So. Yeah, it's one of my favourite parts of the world. Normally, of course, in March, I'd be going there to see the Formula One if I was going there, but there's no Formula One until much later in the year.
Yeah, come on, let's throw that to Armando then. Where would you absolutely love to go if you had to go and be in isolation somewhere? What would your desert island of choice be?
Northwest Wyoming.
Oh. Okay.
I would, if given 2 weeks off of work right now, and Megan could get off work, and Maddie's not in school, so the schools here have closed for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We would jump in an RV, a recreational vehicle, a camper, a caravan, whatever you want to call it, and I would drive to Northwest Wyoming, somewhere just outside of Yellowstone National Park, and just sit there in the middle of the plains, overlooking the mountains, and go kayaking, paddling, eating outside, just talk about social distancing. I would be 2 miles from the nearest person.
Fantastic.
And just reconnect with nature.
Absolutely. Right, I'll tell you what, we'll come back to this in a little while.
Actually, Matt,
in the chat room,
just a quick one.
Everybody in the chat room, basically ping those, where you'd love to go into the chat room, and we'll pop some of them. We'll come back to it in a little while. So ping in the chat room where you'd love to be isolated. If you were going to have to be on lockdown, where would you love to be? Yes, you were. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I literally, it's really bizarre because we've just been talking about Air Malta, and I've literally just
booked a flight.
I just got an email. No. Just got an email actually from their CEO, and just scrolling down, it just says, following a decision by the Maltese Health Authority, we will suspend all our commercial services for flights departing after 23:59 UTC today, Friday the 20th of March, until further notice.
Well, that's
so there we go.
So much for the positive news then.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for that, Carlos. Lovely. Yes.
Okay.
Chin up, everyone. Chin up.
So moving on to the next story, which is
Carlos. I'm sorry, Carlos. You get one of these. Anyway, right.
So this next story says nothing to do with coronavirus. Hold on.
Oh, hang on. Drinks, everyone. Here we go.
But it's a sad story, I think, because this is my number 3 most favourite airliner ever produced. So Armando, take it away.
Yeah, so unfortunately, actually does have to do with that thing that we shall not speak of. So recently, American Airlines announced that it's
are we trying too
retiring
hard?
its fleet.
Are we trying too hard?
No, you gotta do your best. You gotta do your best to make light of the situation. But so American Airlines is retiring its 767s by the end of May, which is way earlier than they originally were planning on. So many have been asking what kind of aircraft American plans to replace them with, and how soon these aircraft will go into service. So just in a recent press release regarding the challenging aviation conditions, we're going to call it, American realized that most of its fleet was out of action and the demand at an all-time low. It was a good time to ramp up its fleet maintenance and refurbishment schedules. So included in these schedules was the eventual retirement of its Boeing 767 fleet, originally proposed to take place over a few years, with the first to be retired in May. American Airlines thought that it maybe should just get it over with and retire all 16 aircraft by the end of May. This would mean that no more maintenance on the aircraft, no more fuel inefficient aircraft in its fleet. So American plans to take delivery of 22 Boeing 787-8s to replace its 16 767s. These aircraft are going to be used to directly replace nearly all of the routes operated by the 767-300, and then allow the airline to open some additional new destinations. So comparing the two aircraft, the 767 can carry about 209 passengers at just under 6,000 nautical miles, and the 787 can carry 239 passengers to a range of 7,300 nautical miles. Obviously, the new aircraft can fly further, carry more passengers than the 76, at a reduced fuel burn. Plus, the passengers have a better experience with the quieter engines, better pressurization, bigger windows, which I think we're going to talk about later. But it's not a complete upgrade across the board. The 787-8 carries less business class seats. Sorry, Nev. Than the 767. So there may be less of an award availability for those looking to upgrade. And additionally, the economy cabin seems a little bit more crowded with a different configuration, which is 232 on the 76 and 333 on the 78. So the article kind of goes on talking about how they're going to phase these aircraft into service. And I think in addition to this, not mentioned in here, American also said it's going to retire 75s. So sorry, Matt, you don't get to fly on a 757 anymore with American.
Woohoo! Woo! Happy. See, there are some positives in all this that's going on. We're going to go back to the question that I set our chat room, was saying where would they love to be in self-isolation. Benjamin Todd has I've pressed the wrong button here. Talk amongst yourselves while I just correct this. Oh dear, I broke it, everyone. I broke it. Yeah.
Yeah. So MBF says Iceland. That's a great choice. The South Island of New Zealand. I think I said it like 3 episodes ago. I've met so many Kiwis now that I need to go to New Zealand. Like every New Zealander is so proud of their island. And I don't know if they go through school on how to advertise, but every single one of them is so proud that it makes me want to jump on an airplane and go to New Zealand.
Absolutely.
Airstig, what an answer. Yeah. Self-isolation at 4,500 feet west of the Great Divide in a rented Cessna 172.
A rented Cessna 172.
Brilliant.
Is there even a thing? I mean, honestly. Benjamin Todd, he was saying that basically the nearest beach with Wi-Fi, laptop, and some nice beverages. I think that's the answer there. Richard Adams, very reliable here. South Island in New Zealand. Don't blame him at all. Having been lucky enough to go there, I couldn't agree more.
Auntie Liz has given us one.
Yeah, an interesting choice by Matt Bunting Frame. Iceland. That's pretty good. James Russell is saying Saint-Tropez. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually, that's one of the places I'd love to go on. That's on the bucket list, definitely. Saint-Tropez.
Don't they make good suntan lotion there?
Right.
No.
Okay. Yes. Now I see what you said.
That's how a joke falls flat on its face.
Yeah, absolutely.
That tumbleweed just then.
Yes, absolutely. I need that as a sound effect, don't I? I've been working on that next. Absolutely.
Where are Miami Rick's crickets?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Newfoundland is Auntie Liz's choice, which I think is a fantastic choice. Yes. Owen's in the chat room here, rather predictably. He said New Zealand is one of the nicest destinations he's flown to. I must admit, as I say, I did the South Island. I keep promising myself that one day I'm going to go to, because I did the South Island. No, hang on. Which island is where Auckland and all that is? Is that the north or the south? I think it's the north, isn't it? Okay, deathly silence. Brilliant.
Chat room.
Is it just me on my own? I can't remember. I genuinely can't remember. But so whichever island it is that's got Auckland and the Bay of Islands and Lake Taupo and all that kind of thing. Because I had 3 weeks basically travelling around that part of New Zealand, and I think Wellington was the best place, because I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to things like Lord of the Rings. So obviously the North Island was very. I'm pretty sure it was the North Island, loving it absolutely. Although Richard Adams is a very sensible answer here. Look, Arctic is a good bet at the moment. Plus they have 14-day quarantine at all times anyway, which is a good point. Yes, Auntie Liz has confirmed it is the North Island. There we go. So you can always rely on Auntie Liz for a good answer. Yes. Anyway, lovely. Thanks for that, chat room. I knew I could rely on you. Carlos, I think it's your go next, isn't it?
Yeah, this next story is, when I found this week, it was, this is awesome, I love it. Acropolis Aviation.com, this one. And if Matt can put the pictures up while I'm doing the story, there are some awesome pictures to go with the story. And I think this is everyone's dream aircraft to go on holiday on. Although Nev obviously flies this way all the time. But this story, Acropolis Aviation welcomes its brand new Airbus ACJ 320 Neo. The world's first ACJ 330 Neo, redelivered by AMAC Aerospace, designed by Alberto Pinto, lead designer Yves Picard, whatever that is. Anyway. So this aircraft features an elegant 19-seat cabin with sleeping for 17 people, focused on well-being for 12-hour flights without compromising on luggage capacity, delivering the highest levels of comfort with an average cabin altitude of 6,400 feet, coupled with an air humidifier as well. Very latest technology, optimized for work and leisure with fast Ka-band internet. So Acropolis Aviation, the UK charter operator, announced this week the arrival of Golf Kilo Echo Lima Tango, its brand new AC320J. The aircraft touched down at Acropolis, Farnborough Airport, which is the airport's home, on the 27th of February, the culmination of 13 months cabin outfitting by Basel, Switzerland-based AMAC Aerospace. Its distinctive, elegant cabin interior was overseen by, as I said, designer Yves Picard from Alberto Pinto. He congratulated the AMAC team who had brought the new design to beauty. The aircraft takes long-haul flying to a new level. Brings stylish accommodation for 19 passengers, private master bedrooms, luxury ensuite bedrooms with rectangular showers, the largest ever showers to be installed on an Airbus single-aisle aircraft. Cabin space is versatile to suit Acropolis' diverse clientele, from heads of state to private individuals flying for business or leisure. There's an emphasis on wellness, though, reflecting that Acropolis Aviation's AC320neo, the first in a new family for Airbus, is capable of flying for over 12 hours. It features, mind you, 12 hours in that kind of luxury. I don't think even Matt would worry about that.
Yeah, I'd be all right with that, funnily enough. Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Features a full-sized kitchen galley, there we go, Matt, for food preparation, and an induction oven, enabling preparation of fresh quality food without any fumes or odours, with an average cabin altitude of 6,400 feet to enhance cabin well-being. The very latest technology is provided by Collins Aerospace, cabin management system, along with its in-flight entertainment system stage, showing hundreds of movies, TV programs to be viewed on 19 individual iPads and 4 large-screen TVs throughout the cabins. Collins is also providing its View LED mood lighting, interior lighting, with its moving map displays, airshow features on the 4 large cabin screens, and the aircraft is also fitted with super-fast Wi-Fi by Ka-band internet connection. He said that we're thrilled to be starting this new decade with the arrival of the aircraft, which we look forward to showcasing to the industry soon, he added. It's a great pleasure that we have executed and completed the project for Acropolis Aviation, one of the world's leading private aviation operators, commented Bernard Schramm, Group Chief Operating Officer of AMAC. Arrangements are underway with Airbus Corporate Jets, ACJ, to show the aircraft on the static display during EBACE 2020 in Geneva, which may well not go ahead now. But the Acropolis became the first customer for the new family of aircraft at the show in May 2015. And I have to say, when you look at these pictures of this aircraft, this is kind of like a hotel in the sky. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, yeah.
Yeah, and there, if you go to acropolisaviation.com/empty legs, I think there's a possibility that somebody could actually fly on this thing when it's just transiting. So the vast universe of PTUK listeners, if there is somebody out there that wants to take a chance at flying on this thing, make sure you send us a segment in.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. I have to ask the question, Armando, is everything all right at home? Are you having are you having some building work done or something?
No, it's so I've told you guys we live by the lake, so we get people in all kinds of sports cars and motorcycles, and so I'm on sort of a minor street, what you would have sort of be a B road by the seashore up there in East Anglia, and we get the weirdest just sports cars always coming through here, so. Sorry for the background noise.
Actually, all jokes aside, Carlos, Richard's got a great idea. Basically, we need to be thinking about one monster meetup once the virus is finally out of the way. I think that's a great idea. Nev is always very helpful, isn't he? You're suggesting summer 2022, I think, for said meetup, Charming. You think it'll be over by then, do you?
Oh, I hope so. Yes.
Absolutely.
No, that's a good point, though, Richard made. I think we should look at doing something when this is all over, because we'll all need a bit of.
We definitely will. Yeah,
cheering
absolutely. No cheer. Stephen Howland, I think, has got a vaguely sensible. I'd probably be around about show 500. He's probably not wrong there. But never mind. Hey. I don't know. Laugh or cry, isn't it? It's one of those. Hello.
Oh, sorry, we're still here. I'm just going through the chat room.
What are you trying to do?
I'm doing online shopping.
Sitting here reading a chat room, totally miles away. Actually, the next story, funnily enough, is actually
your
yours,
show, Carlos.
Sorry. So the next story.
I love dead air. It's fine. It's you carry on.
You know, it's great. It's great when we thought Megan was going to fall asleep through the show. It's great when even the creator of the show.
I didn't realise that our commander-in-chief had nodded off halfway through, but never mind.
Sorry,
anyway.
sorry, men. So, moving swiftly.
Carlos, I'm very sorry, but you get another one of these.
It's a good thing that the rest of the world has nothing to do and everybody's just locked into their house because they'll just hang in there with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I just say one thing before we move on?
No.
Coronavirus.
Hey, hang on. Oh, cheers.
Anyway, moving on. The next story, Matt. This one is for you, and this is either kind of good news or this might not even happen news, but it's kind of good news.
Well, we're going to say good news. Come on, let's think positive.
Yeah.
So you can. This is sort of, I don't know, EasyJet trying to put a positive spin on it, isn't it? So it's basically to cut a long story short that it is on the olive press is the source. It's involving EasyJet, and basically they're saying that EasyJet is to launch the winter schedule early to allow people to change their flights to a much later date. So EasyJet has launched its winter 2020-21 schedule early due to that thing. In an email sent out to customers today, the Luton-based company explained that they were releasing the schedule today, and this has been done early in order for people to be able to change their current flights for a date next year, which I think is a brilliant idea. In addition, they've also waived their change fees, so that travellers can amend their current orders for free. This is something that Ryanair has also done, causing a wrath of customers. As alternative dates have inflated prices. All right, okay. Until midnight on March 24th, all flights on the 25th of October 2020 until February 28, 2021 will be available at or below €32 one way per person. This comes after the low-cost airline announced that all its flights from the UK to Spain have been cancelled until March due to, grab your glasses everyone, the coronavirus. And
ching ching.
Ching, absolutely, quite. Cheers.
Ching,
anyway,
ching.
The fine part of the email, the fine print of the email, however, specifies that flights to Germany, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, Israel and Jordan will be released at a later date. But I mean, it's not, I don't know, it's every cloud has a silver lining. I guess that's the thing, isn't it? It's an attempt at a positive spin on a bad situation, isn't it? So at least those who did have flights booked can now think about looking ahead, if you like, because I think half of the battle of getting through all this is making sure that we have something to look forward to at the end of it. And do you know what? I think Richard's 100% on it with this one. We need to start organising our big meet-up for sort of like post-chaos, don't we? I think that's a brilliant idea. What do you reckon, Nev?
Great idea. Yeah, I like the sound of that. Just to talk about the Spanish situation, of course, Mrs. Nev and I were due to be in Spain, but luckily for us, she was ill on the way to the airport, so we just came straight home. Otherwise, we might have been stuck.
Yeah.
But 2 days afterwards, in fact, it was Tuesday of this week, all the hotels
were
closing
all closed,
down,
weren't they?
So, that would have been very difficult.
Ironically, you had a very you had a very sort of
Hello, Jenny in Rome.
lucky shoot, didn't you? Absolutely, sort of lucky call there, really. Who would have thought that somebody being taken ill could be considered a positive thing?
I know.
Oh dear! Look, the chat room's going absolutely nuts. I love how Jenny, bless her. Look, I don't know if the picture isn't that clear on here, but in the bottom left-hand corner, look, Jenny's actually wearing her PT UK T-shirt. Look, in her little YouTube thing. That's anyway. She's just popping in and out. No doubt, as always at this time of day, busy cooking everyone's food. Bless her. Yes, welcome, Jenny. Nice to see you.
So the next story, Nev, we always talk about long flights, and we all love a nice long flight, apart from Matt, of course.
No thanks.
But Nev, this is an airline that we know of, but this is not one of those airlines that kind of we hear about all the time.
No, that's right. We don't hear much about it in the news, but this is on the simpleflying.com website. And it says that Air Tahiti Nui has successfully completed the world's longest flight using a Dreamliner. It's also the world's longest flight overall and the longest domestic flight ever to have taken place. The flight travelled non-stop between Papeete in Tahiti and Paris, France, covering 15,715 kilometres in 15 hours and 45 minutes. Now, with challenges to flight paths due to restrictions imposed around the world, airlines are needing to apply some out-of-the-box thinking in order to operate some of their services. One such creative solution was witnessed from one of the world's smallest but relatively well-known airlines, which is the one we just mentioned, Air Tahiti Nui. The French Polynesian airline usually operates a flight between Papeete and Paris with a stopover in Los Angeles en route. However, with the travel ban affecting French travellers, the stop in LA was off the table. As such, the airline decided to operate the flight non-stop on March the 15th, flying a plane load of passengers directly to Paris from its home. At the distance of 15,715 kilometres, the flight overtakes the current world's longest regular flight, which is Singapore Airlines service between Singapore and Newark, which comes in at 15,343 kilometres. Oddly enough, the flight is technically a domestic flight, so has also taken the crown as the world's longest domestic flight, a record which is unlikely to be broken anytime soon. Well, the flight itself, it was a 787, which was scheduled to depart from Papeete at 0300 local time on the 15th of March. It departed just about on time, pushing back at 0310, and the flight number was TN64, operated by aircraft Foxtrot Oscar Tango Oscar Alpha, which is a 6-month-old 787-9 that was delivered to the airline on the 10th of August of last year. The flights, according to Flight Radar 24, took 15 hours and 45 minutes to complete, and it touched down in Paris at 5:54 in the morning, or almost half an hour ahead of its scheduled arrival time of 6:20. With the success of this flight, Air Tahiti takes the crown for the world's longest flight, and using a Dreamliner, and of course the world's domestic flight, as we already mentioned. It's a huge accolade for the tiny airline headquartered in the Pacific, but it's also an exceptional trip. The airline cannot make the trip back in one go. As such, will be stopping in Vancouver in Canada for refueling. It has said that it's not planning any additional non-stop flights in the coming days and weeks, but both Vancouver and Guadeloupe planned as alternative fuel stop locations. The published range of the Dash 9 is only 14,800 miles, which is about 1,000 kilometres, 14,800 kilometres, which is about 1,000 kilometres short of the required distance for the flight. For Singapore Airlines, regularly scheduled from Singapore to Newark service, the airline uses a specially modified ultra-long-range A350 with a premium heavy seating configuration to lower the carried weight. Air Tahiti didn't have time to modify its Dreamliner for the flight or to add additional fuel carrying capacity. However, it's likely that the flight was achievable due to widespread low demand for travel at the moment. Whilst they don't have figures from Air Tahiti for the load factors on the flight, other airlines are reporting loads as low as 20 to 30% down on international routes. And as such, the underloaded Dreamliner could have easily made the trip thanks to the reduced weight on board. I have to say, again, things have moved on since that article was written, because I think we're down to much lower load factors now. That was written on March the 16th, so that was 4 days ago. So,
do you know what I have to say? They probably have one of my favourite liveries, Nev.
it is nice, isn't it? Yeah.
It is really, and I have to say, I've just been looking online at some of the pictures of the interiors of their Dreamliners, and even their interior is so nice. Really, really nice, vibrant colours, lovely colours interior. The interiors really, really look nice on this airline. But again, it's one of those airlines that we've not really heard tons of stuff about, really, have we?
No, indeed. I've just popped a picture up, actually. I hope you get the cushions with it as well. That looks lovely.
That is just, that is awesome. Such a bright...
Yeah, I like that, isn't it? Yeah,
very nice.
Light and airy.
Light and airy, that's it, yeah. Armando, is this an airline you're, well-versed in?
No, I like you guys. I think we've done a couple stories here and there in the past, but no, it's first. I'm glad that a small airline like this is setting, such a significant benchmark.
So the next story, Armando, for you is this is just bizarre. I think from the actual headline, this starts off as bizarre straight away.
Yeah. So from simpleflying.com, are you flying on a 787 soon? You can install your own stained glass window. So one cunning entrepreneur has come up with a way to pimp your aircraft during your next flight. Available in a range of sizes, the Magical Superstore is selling stained glass window inserts designed to adhere to aircraft windows. Simple Flying has covered some strange stories over the past couple of years. In fact, the tutu-wearing dogs which delayed a flight and a runaway golf cart, they thought they'd covered it all. However, despite all these negative news currently circulating, the folks at Magical Superstore have found another odd story for them and us to report. So you may be used to seeing stained glass windows at churches or perhaps an old castle, but at 36,000 feet. If you haven't, go over to that store. They're selling stained glass films that you can stick over the window next time you're traveling. According to the store selling them, these stained glass windows would allow you to enjoy a dazzling stained glass window while you read a book, nap, or pray on your flight. What's more is they go on to claim that they can be used as protective film against germs on plane windows. Debatable. Yeah. So here are some prices if you make your way over there. Let's see, the Airbus A330 is $25. A350 is $30. If you happen to find yourself on a Boeing 707, that is $35. I think the last one was operated by an Iranian carrier. Let's see, 767 is $35, 777 is $45, and 787 for a whopping $50. There you go. So you can buy a 3-pack for, if you get that thing, which we shall not speak of, on your previous stained glass windows, you can buy a 3-pack and get some extra replacements. But there you go. Some I think pleasing views.
I think my favourite comment from the chat room, is from Richard Adams, where he says, "Vatican Air." I like that. It's I don't know. I mean, I guess you get nice, pretty colours off the back of it. That's the only thing, I suppose, as you say, certainly. But good on Simple Flying, sort of friends of the show. They've been very kind in sort of I don't know, trying to find good positive stories in all this hideous doom and gloom. So
That's right.
It's a good move. It's a good move on their part. Let's be honest.
I like it.
Yeah.
So the next story, and this one is the link actually comes via Facebook for this one, and this is the Irish Coast Guard, which is on the actual header for the actual story on here. So working under Irish Coast Guard helicopter R116, it says today, we rescued a lady cut off by the tide on Marion Strand, which dropped her back safely on the beach to the Dunlopur crew. R116, just after midnight, 3 years ago, in the early hours of the 14th of March 2017, a Sikorsky S-92 Irish Coast Guard helicopter went off the radar. Call sign R116. It says here that they lost 4 colleagues and were loved and today are still left uneasy. Captain Dara Fitzpatrick, Captain Mark Duffy, Winchman Kieran Smith and Winchman Paul Ormsby all lost their lives on a rescue mission. The expression we heard recently sums up how most Irish Coast Guards personally today still feel now, 3 years on, about the loss. We are all okay, but just okay. Today's rescue, or the rescue that's actually brought into light on this story, left a special signature in the sky, and the pictures can be seen. I don't know whether Matt's putting up on the screen while I'm reading this, but the special signature.
Wow, you're hopeful, aren't you? I'm busy drinking gin. I don't know what you're doing.
Oh, okay. But the story as well, as a recap. So just as a recap for those that might not be familiar, the Sikorsky S-92 that was performing top cover support for another helicopter while that helicopter is offshore performing a search and rescue off the west coast of Ireland on March the 14th back in 2017. So in a preliminary report published in April 2017, the Air Accident Investigation Unit found that the helicopter had clipped the small island off Black Rock at an altitude of around 200 feet while on approach to Black Sod Lighthouse for a refueling stop, and subsequently crashed out of control into the sea. The preliminary report also suggests that Black Rock Island was not on the database of the Enhanced Ground Proximity Warning System. A draft final report had been circulated with interest parties in September of last year. However, the Irish Minister for Transport, Shane Ross, has announced that certain findings made by the Air Accident Investigation Unit will be re-examined. One of the parties subject to the investigation sought a re-examination after informing the Minister of the belief that some of the draft findings and conclusions reflected adversely on their reputation. This has delayed the final publication of the report. Now, casting my mind back, I can remember this being in the news back a few years back, actually, with this crash. And it was very, very sad at the time because as they were on a rescue mission. So very sad indeed. It just goes to prove that, you know, even being in the profession of, say, these guys, Coast Guard, you're not infallible. You know, accidents can happen. And unfortunately, this resulted in a loss of life.
Yeah, I'll add in here, Carlos, my first cousin is a rescue diver for the U.S. Coast Guard. And a lot of times when I was still on the Osprey over there in England, we would rely on both the Coast Guard and the RNLI to be on duty and on shift when we were flying, and we would actually take not more risk, but if they weren't available to come rescue us, we knew their capabilities were just fantastic. So if they weren't available to respond to us, we would mitigate that risk by either flying higher or we would fly in less bad weather. So just to, you know, there's a lot of good documentaries out there. There's a good movie with Ashton Kutcher and I think Kevin Costner about Coast Guard, the Coast Guard. But as aviators and aviation enthusiasts, usually we look up at the sky, and if we see, 200-foot overcast with moderate rain or icing levels down to the surface, most of us say, we're not going. But a lot of the time, these guys don't have the option of saying that, and nobody gets lost in great, beautiful weather. So they're often responding in the middle of the night in just the most terrible weather. And I've always had a soft spot for first responders, but the Coast Guard and the Royal Lifeguards, that they are just amazing organizations that with amazing capabilities and above all amazing people, as evidenced by this crew that paid the ultimate sacrifice. So I've always had just a great admiration for Coast Guard aviators and the the folks out on the boats too. So.
Agreed.
Yeah, actually, it's something I meant to say on last week's show. Actually, those of you who obviously know that I lost my grandfather earlier on this year, but I'm actually really proud to say that when we had the funeral, that the charity that Grandad chose for all the donations to go to was actually the air ambulance, which was really quite warming, I will say.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, so actually it says on the show notes, we've just had an addition to the show notes, I will say, whilst has been live. So the John Hutchinson, don't forget the series of interviews that we had, he was actually asking for any donations, if you appreciate the series of interviews, to go to the RNLI, which obviously is another very, very important part of our heritage here on the East, especially for us, Matt, on the East Coast, with the RNLI stations that we have around the East Coast.
Well, I mean, any services like that, and also the East Anglian Air Ambulance, for example, they were very much on duty as I was coming home tonight. Actually, they were landed in a field just on the outskirts of Lowestoft as I was coming home. So it's all of these services are really vital, aren't they? But
very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And the scary thing is certainly with the RNLI, that as John Hutchison was saying, I mean, they are volunteers, which is crazy, isn't it? You can't believe that something we rely on so heavily, especially as you say here in the East, is a voluntary service. It's absolutely crazy.
So, Matt, the next story for you, I hope you've got your jumper and your woolly jumper and your woolly hat and scarf on, because this next story is pretty damn cold.
Is it? Right, okay, so this is, we're going back to, oh, hello, my camera's gone all bananas, sorry about that, simpleflying.com, and the headline is Australia lands Airbus A319 in Antarctica for a rescue mission. So yesterday, an Airbus A319 landed in Antarctica to a medical emergency. The aircraft was flown by the Australian Antarctic Division to the frozen continent. The reason? To bring a US citizen to safety where they could receive medical treatment. So what happened? It's not every day that you hear about commercial aviation aircraft flying to Antarctica. However, earlier this week, that's exactly what an Airbus A319 did. On Friday the 13th of March, there should have been an alarm bell there ringing somewhere, the Australian Antarctic Division, the AAD, received a call from the US Antarctic Programme in regard to a medical emergency. One of their team, based in the east of Antarctica at the McMurdo station, was in need of treatment that could not be locally administered. With the temperature well below freezing, the AAD set out on a 3,500 kilometre rescue mission to save the programme member. The aircraft was based in Hobart, Tasmania, and arrived at the McMurdo base with a capable staff unit. On board were medical and aeromedical teams and a specialist retrieval unit. Despite the bracing conditions, the aircraft was able to land safely on the frozen continent and transfer the casualty to hospital in Christchurch. In response to the rescue effort, Charlton Clark, the General Manager of the Antarctic Operations and Safety at the Australian Antarctic Division, said that everything went well as they could have hoped. Speaking in a press release, Mr. Clark said the conditions on the ground were challenging. When the Airbus landed at McMurdo Station, it was around minus 30 degrees Celsius with wind chill. We are really pleased to be able to assist the United States Antarctic Programme as a first responder in this emergency, and it's a real testament to the great spirit of cooperation between Antarctic nations. It's a great story, really, isn't it? There's a couple of amazing pictures, actually, which I'm just going to pop up on the screen, if I may, because this is a sight to behold, basically, an A319, essentially not on tarmac, but on an icy runway. I mean, that is an incredible image, isn't it? when you consider the weight of that aircraft and the fact that it's sort of sat there. I wonder how easy taking off was. I don't know if the snowstorm behind it was a bit of a challenge, no doubt. But yeah, a great story there.
Armando, have you ever flown in very wintry conditions in your time?
Yeah, quite a bit. It's actually not that hard. You just have to plan for it. You can't brake. You're going to use a lot of reverse thrust or beta range if you have that. But we actually do it all the time. A lot of times in these northern climates, there's very little snow plowing capability, or sometimes the snow is just falling so fast that they don't have the ability to clear it out. And we have a way to measure runway conditions. So it's measured on a scale of basically no braking through good braking action, and then everywhere in the middle. And it just factors into your risk matrix. A snowed over runway that's dry snow, but it's clear weather, you have no problem going into it. But if you combine in perhaps an icy runway with a strong crosswind, and then bad weather conditions, low ceilings or something like that, that may elevate your sort of risk acceptance level or something like that. But flying down in Antarctica, if it's dry snow and it's a long runway and you can point it into the wind, go for it.
You make it sound so easy.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how common it is.
Really?
I was just thinking of the great snowball fights you could have in that kind of situation.
Snowball fights, honestly.
Yeah.
Such children.
What's interesting is when you go into reverse or in the Pilatus, what I fly, you can only go into sort of a half reverse, a beta range. You can't go into full reverse, otherwise all of the snow will go forward, and then it totally wipes out your windshield, and then you can't see where you're going. But as long as you stay off the brakes and just do a little bit of reverse and sort of roll it all the way out, let the snow slow you down, then you can do a 5,000 foot snowed over runway in a Pilatus, no problem.
As you do.
So the next story for you, Nev, and get your beers ready, people.
Oh, right.
Because there may be a C word in here. So, Nev, take it away.
Yeah, it's on the airlinegeeks.com website, and it says Japan Airlines prepares for Olympic flame transfer with special livery, with the games of the 32nd Olympiad still planned to begin on July the 24th. The transition of Olympic flame from Greece to Japan will be completed this week using a Japan Airlines aircraft as an intermediary to get the flame across continents. I have to say straight away, this story was written on the 17th of March, so things may have moved on since then.
I know. I was watching a story this morning actually, where they say, unbelievably, certainly this element of it is the arriving of the torch, the lighting and taking it was still going ahead, which I must admit I was very surprised about. I can only imagine that the relay element to things must be in doubt, surely.
Well, it says that both JAL and All Nippon Airways have sponsorship deals in place for the games, but Japan Airlines was chosen to be the one to fly the flame. In cooperation with the two largest Japanese carriers, a special livery and path between the two nations has been determined and will be executed. In fact, yesterday, wasn't it? Assuming there was no delays that could arise. Japan Airlines has a long-standing history of being the official airlines for international events. The airline carried the previous flame for the Tokyo 1964 Olympics using a Douglas DC-6 to carry the torch from Athens to Tokyo. Furthermore, JAL has been the official airline of the Japanese Olympic team since 1992 and the Japanese Paralympic team since 2005. Alongside the Olympiad, the airline is the official airline for the Samurai Blue, which is Japan's national football team, with both teams usually seeing a special livery when their respective international event comes around every 2 or 4 years. For the event, JAL's 787-8 Dreamliner, which is Juliet Alpha 837 Juliet, has been given a special livery to celebrate the event. The livery features a mix of gold and red trim with an outline of a human carrying the torch on the forward fuselage. The airline's name, rival's name, and official Tokyo 2020 logo make up the only text on the forward fuselage. Over the wing reads Tokyo 2020 Olympic Torch Relay, whilst the rear reads Hope Lights Our Way. The tail is mostly white and the official torch relay sticker above the Olympic rings. The aircraft will hold the flame from Athens to Matsushima Air Base, which is located just to the north of the city of Sendai. The flame was lit on March the 12th for an original week-long trip from Olympia to Athens, but was suspended not long after due to Europe's current coronavirus woes. The flame will still travel to Athens and be handed over to the Games coordinators for the trip to Japan, but the event has since been closed to the public. Once in Japanese control, the Olympic flame will transition via the Dreamliner to the host country's territory, where it will take its remaining 100-mile trip on foot to the J Village National Training Center, located outside Fukushima. The arrival ceremony will be highlighted by former Japanese judo gold medalist Nomura Tadahiro and gold medal winner Sahori Yoshida. After the event at J Village, the torch will depart on a tour of Japan, with plans already in place to limit crowds due to the COVID-19 virus. At the time of writing, the International Olympic Committee was reviewing the current plans to hold the Tokyo 2020 Olympics on time. The series of athletic events are expected to begin in July and run into August. However, with travel restrictions and the collapse of the athletics scene globally as a result of the coronavirus epidemic, the IOC will review the current plans for the Summer Games, with changes potentially being made to help avoid an underperforming or fan-less Olympic game. So there's still lots going on there, and this point where we're on a Friday evening here in the UK, it is still going ahead, but it would not surprise me if they make other decisions.
I mean, surely they've got no choice given how things are going on at the moment. I mean, it's in the current climate, it would seem absolute madness, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Such a shame indeed.
Quite.
So Armando, hopefully you've not got any speedboats going past or anything. You can take the next story.
No,
just a motorbike instead. Just a right on cue there, a motorbike.
Right on cue. There's a Harley Davidson going by.
What a tough life.
It is. Motorcycles, speedboats, airplanes. It's the lake life.
Nice to know that everyone's taking self-isolation so seriously, isn't it?
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
anyway, so this last story in the commercial segment is not so much of a story as much as it is a guide for all of us here in the aviation community. So it's actually a website called spotterguide.net. And I won't lie, I'm kind of an av geek. So I have done my share of plane spotting. And I remember when I was a kid sitting just outside the San Juan International Airport with my dad, and we would sit out just off the runway at Ronald Reagan International Airport in Washington, D.C. So this spotter guide gives you some of the best spots, and it's a community website, so you can contribute to it if you find a good spot. But really, it could just serve as a destination guide for any one of us ab geeks. So here are some just on their splash page. So we've got St. Lucia spotting guide, New York's LaGuardia. We've got Barbados, Marseille, Royal Air Force Mildenhall is number 6. Familiar with that place. Ireland, West Airport, Fort Myers, Southwest Florida International Airport, Singapore, St. Petersburg, Russia, Cyril King Airport in St. Thomas. That's a great place. A lot of YouTube videos come out of there with airplanes coming just about 50 feet over your head. So, if you're looking for a destination, and now that plane tickets are cheap, if you want to social distance yourself or stand 6 feet away from another plane spotter, head over to spotterguide.net. Book yourself a cheap €32 ticket to Bergamo. Don't go to Bergamo. It's not a good place to go right now. Go to Krakow or something like that, and then go get yourself some good pictures.
Like the picture they've used for the Mildenhall one with the AWACS.
Oh yeah,
the plumes of exhaust smoke coming from the engines.
Is that
AWACS just
is that
just
those,
doing their part for the environment?
Is that those chemtrails that everybody keeps talking about?
Oh God, these aren't chemtrail. These are coal fired.
Oh, okay.
Trials.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's not without its charm. Actually, listen. Before we speaking of plane spotters and amazing people, I'm going to play this actually because I believe. He says, and it's not working. Brilliant. Oh, well, that was a shame. That would have worked really...
Should we just sing it anyway?
Yeah, I could say it would have worked really well if I'd have pressed the button and actually did what it's 10 seconds in and it's still not played. So it's obviously... It is doing it. You wait, it'll suddenly kick in. Anyway, it's Mila's birthday today, everyone. So, I think we should attempt to sing a song. This is not going to work well with all this latency. That's why I was kind of hoping the music would play, but never mind. After 3, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2, 3. A happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear my love.
Happy birthday
to you. That was, that was almost beautiful. In the same way that a car crash might be a beautiful thing. I think that gets a big...
It's as beautiful as a lightning strike.
Okay, the soundboard is completely packed up. That's brilliant.
Okay, so we are going to move on with the show, and we're going to move on to the next part of the show. And it's safe to say that obviously Nev is back this week. So Nev has got a very special segment to bring us next. So we're going to hand things over to the legend that is Neville Bounds.
Oh, thank you, Carlos. Well, I was very fortunate a few weeks ago. I was doing some filming up in Cambridge with Matt and Andy from the A320 podcast, just to help them film their next series of training videos. And it's a fantastic facility there, actually. I've been there once before. VAAirlinetraining.com is their website, should you wish to go and visit it. And they've got a 737 NG and an A320 simulator, both fixed base, but extremely realistic and very good indeed. So we had a full day's filming there, and I said to Matt and Andy, do you think, because I've had a go at the Concorde simulator at Brooklands, I've had a go at the 737 simulator at the place we went to for our 200th show.
MP Simulations.
That's it, NP Simulations, of course. But I'd never flown an A320 before with the side stick controller, so I thought I'll have a go at it. Anyway, they set me up for, actually it was a completely clear day, so there was no wind or anything like that, but they set me up for an ILS into London's Gatwick 26 left, and this is what happened.
Oh, okay, here we go. Right, so come on, you talk us through this, Nev. What's
first of all, it's the realism is fantastic. It's really realistic. Your peripheral vision, as you've seen from other simulators, is it really does complete the picture for you. So this is just us joining the localizer, I think, probably by the looks of things. We're on probably about a 5 or 6 mile final now into the airport. So
I know which. I can say
through the windscreen there, the airport itself.
Too low gear. Too low flaps. Too low gear. Hold up. Hold up.
Is there some sound with this, by the way?
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm pleased about that.
Yeah.
And actually, well, it's quite straightforward up until about, well, I don't know, 800 feet, something like that, and then suddenly it feels as though the side stick controller movements, you've got to be really, really careful with them, because you can easily over control it.
So, also because we've all had to go. Obviously, we had at the 200s, we all had to go with the 737-800, didn't we? Essentially, the Ryanair plane for what it. Now, obviously, that had like the big rudder control thingy that was in the sort of like between your legs, and you had this big. The yoke, sorry, thank you. Thanks for that. Oh, no, not the rudder control, that's something else, and that's to do with the pedals, isn't it? Anyway.
Yes.
Get me. So, I mean, obviously, the Airbus is very much famed for having what I like to call a joystick, isn't it, for controlling things. How did that feel like different? Having had to go with the yoke?
You've just got to, again, most for all Airbus aircraft are very stable. So this is me flying it manually now. So I've disconnected the autopilot. So this is me literally flying it.
Now in charge.
I think that it would be. I mean, obviously you've got to go through months and months and months of training and hours to do all this properly. But it was slightly easier than I expected it to be. But as I say, in the last sort of 750 feet or so, it's very easy to over control it, and you'll see, although I did land on the runway, it was, as they say, slightly left of centre line.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
I don't think any passengers were harmed in the filming of this segment. No, it was a really good experience, but quite hard work. But luckily, I had a very experienced captain to my right who was helping me through it. It was a great experience, and this was at the end of a long day's filming as well, so I wasn't my best.
No. While we're waiting for you to be on finals, shall we say? Well, you're on finals, but on
wind shear.
Yeah, all right, wind shear. Be quiet. What I was going to say was, obviously, there's been another big event actually for big friends of the show, the A320 podcast, and of course they've just celebrated their 100th episode, haven't they?
They did.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't done so already, then can I strongly recommend that you give it a listen. You download it, obviously, just Google it. I'm sure you'll find it. It'll be on iTunes and all that kind of thing. But special guests were the legend that is the legendary Captain Al. He joined them, didn't he? And I think a very special Plane Tales, I think, was also added to the mix. Was good, actually.
They did a great show for the 100. So normally the A320 podcast is quite a short show. It's about 20 minutes long usually, but it was about over an hour, I think, and it was really good, really interesting. Anyway,
Nev, I can see the runway.
Yes, this is a good thing. We like that. This is me on the short final, and things are getting a bit difficult now because it's so easy to overcorrect, as you can now see as I'm drifting nicely.
The tiniest twitch, isn't it? And it's just like.
Again, this is on a completely calm day in the simulator, so you imagine what it's like,
wind shear
conditions.
I mean, some of these videos that we've seen, obviously with the weather being the way it is, it's just
100 above.
Oh, here we go. It's all getting a bit serious.
100 above.
Yeah. So this is the point where I find it very difficult indeed to do everything at the same time. Flare the aircraft to make sure you touch down on the main gear. But it was just at this point here where it started to drift to the left, and I really couldn't quite get it back onto the centre. So it was a considerable amount of rudder input required to try and get it back.
You're on the top.
They say. Well, yeah, any landing where A, you can walk away from it, or B, the aircraft is usable again, is a win, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, Nev, the question has got to be asked. Obviously, we all got the chance to fly the sim for our 200th show, the 737-800 sim, and now obviously you've flown in the 320 sim. What was easiest? What was the easier aircraft to fly?
Difficult to say. I think I preferred the A320 because I don't know, with a big yoke and all the rest of it, it did feel a bit sort of cumbersome. But with the side stick control, obviously bearing in mind if you're on the left or the right hand seat, you're using different hands to do it with. But I found the 320 easier, but you've just got to bear in mind that the sensitivity of the side stick is, can be quite a lot.
Nev, we have a message or a question for you from Tony S. In the chat room here, and he says, Neville, if you could turn back time, would you have been an airline pilot?
Oh yeah, I think if I was any good at passing exams, I would love to have done that. But I just wasn't really, and I've not been very good since, to be honest with you. And of course, it's all rather late now, especially under the current commercial and financial circumstances that we all find ourselves in. So I would have liked to have done it back in the day, especially when airlines would sponsor you to actually do the training, but. All the airline pilots, or the vast majority of them, are paying an awful lot of money, a mortgage basically, in order to complete their training. And that's and without often a guaranteed job at the end of it. So the financial commitment is absolutely enormous.
Actually, Tony S. follows it up, Nev, with the statement that after that landing, you'll be having a meeting with the chief pilot.
Yes, I would. I think I may have exceeded the G limits there of the aircraft, so it'll be coffee and no biscuits.
Right. I mean, that's always a bit of a shame. I mean, now the jokes are starting to ping in. Oh, this one's come from Owing.
Oh yeah,
you heard it here first. Nev doesn't like a big yoke, indeed. But he does like a bit on the side. Thanks, Richard. Thanks for that.
Anyway, on that bombshell.
Moving swiftly on with the show.
Yes,
and we are obviously going to hand things over to our military expert to introduce the next part of this week's show.
Yeah, guys, it's been a while since I've been here for a live military segment, but if you guys are ready, let's talk about a couple stories here.
Yeah, let's go.
So this first story is from the Air Force Times. After a year after renewing its focus on the alarming rate of crashes and other aviation accidents, the Air Force saw a fleet-wide decline in the most serious manned aircraft mishaps in fiscal year 2019, but the number of serious mishaps increased for fighter and attack aircraft. So the total number and rate of Class A, B, and C mishaps, and we'll explain that later, in manned aircraft declined last year, as did the number of fatalities and destroyed aircraft. This number is gonna blow your mind, but there were a total of 667 total mishaps in those three categories last year, the least since fiscal year 2013, and a 13% decline from the recent high in 2017. But Class A through C mishaps sharply increased between fiscal year 2018 and 19 for F-15 Eagles, Strike Eagles, F-16 Fighting Falcons, F-22s, F-35s, and A-10s, according to statistics provided by the Air Force Safety Center. So in a February 21st interview, Major General John Rauch, the Air Force's Chief of Safety and the commander of the Safety Center, said the overall decline in most serious mishaps, particularly the steep drop in fatalities, is obviously a good thing, but there's no simple reason why these mishaps declined. The Air Force still has a lot of work to do, he said. We'll keep working to try to stop mishaps before they happen. When the numbers go down next year, you're not going to necessarily take a victory lap. If they return more towards normal or even a little bit below normal, you're going to say we need to continue to do those proactive things that we have been doing. After last year, 2018, the renewed attention was focused on the problem of aviation mishaps. There was a Military Times investigation that found rising numbers of accidents and deaths across the military since the beginning of the sequestration budget cuts, which go back to about 2008, 2009. It basically forced the military and so many other aspects of government to do more with less. The Air Force, the overall mishap rate hit a 7-year high in 2017, fueled by a growing number of non-fatal Class C mishaps, which cost between $50,000 and $500,000, or led to an injury serious enough to result in lost workdays. The Air Force mishaps rose about 17% between 2013 and 2017. So lawmakers here in the U.S. demanded some action. The Air Force Chief of Staff, General Dave Goldfein, in 2018 ordered an operational safety review, which included one-day stand-downs for all flying and maintenance wings. The review tried to zero in on several potential risks to aviation safety, including a high operations tempo, a lack of available aircraft, inexperienced maintainers, and a culture that pushes airmen to always execute the mission. So this article is kind of lengthy. It's a good read because it goes on into some of the specific mishaps that happened in 2018, 2017 that really made the Air Force leadership take a step back and say, hey, what are we doing right now? Is it training? Is it maintenance? Is it operations? But it seems like all of these things combined led to just an increase, just the more aggressive operations that the Air Force was doing in the last couple of years. And also the article goes on to talk a little bit about that increase in fighter aircraft mishaps and a decrease in bomber tanker transport mishaps. So it's a good read. Go over to the Air Force Times and read about kind of the process on how the Air Force looks at some of these things.
Just a question, Armando. On the story, on the article itself, it says that the Ospreys had the highest combined rate of Class A and Class B mishaps in fiscal 2019. Could you know, obviously you know the Osprey fairly well, do you think there's a reason behind why it was focused on the Osprey?
So the Osprey is a unique airplane in that it's pretty maintenance heavy. So there's a lot of maintenance delays, call it. They're not maintenance issues. There's just a longer wait time for parts. We won't fly them if they're not safe to fly, obviously. But the missions that the Osprey, the mission gap that it's filling is a really unique one. It's somewhere between that, that fixed wing, small aircraft, and then a rotary lift capability. So I think the techniques and procedures that are still being developed and refined in the Osprey, and a lot of times that leads to mishaps that aren't necessarily fatal, but they happen because we just haven't either done that mission set before, or it's been done a couple times. We've got a limited amount of data on how to execute that mission. So I think that the training is pretty good, but I think that sort of new mission gap that the Osprey's trying to fill, combined with some maintenance issues, and they're still trying to figure out how to fly it in some adverse weather conditions. It does have a terrain following radar. It does have some adverse weather conditions, but it's just kind of an evolving platform, like so many other new platforms. It may have a little bit higher mishap rate than some of the other aircraft.
Interesting. Next story actually covers an aircraft that obviously will be it's actually very similar to the Osprey. This one is on military.com website. Headline: these two futuristic aircraft will compete to replace the Army's Black Hawk helicopter. If Matt can get these pictures up on the screen, they are fairly groovy pictures. So US Army aviation officials have selected two firms that will move forward into the next phase of the service's effort to replace the UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter with the Future Long Range Assault Aircraft, or FLA. FLRAA. Program Executive Officer Aviation recently awarded competitive agreements to Bell Textron Incorporated and Sikorsky Aircraft Incorporated as well to continue into the competitive demonstration and risk reduction phase of the program under the Army's Future Vertical Lift, or FVL effort, according to a recent release from the PEO Aviation. Bell Textron's V280 Vala tilt rotor helicopter prototype and the Sikorsky's Boeing SB-1 coaxial rotor Defiant helicopter prototype were developed under the Army's Joint Multi-Role Technology Demonstrator effort. These agreements are an important milestone for the FLRAA, Patrick Mason, PEO Aviation, said in the release. He said they will be conducting analysis to refine requirements, conceptual designs, and acquisition approach. The CD and RR effort is scheduled to last until 2022, the year the Army plans to select one of the vendors to eventually produce the FLRAA. The service has set a goal of fiscal 2030 to have the first unit equipped with an aircraft that is capable of flying at speeds of more than 200 knots, or 230 miles an hour, and offer increased range over the current Black Hawk for future air assault and medical missions. By comparison, the Black Hawks equipped for combat fly at an average of 140 knots. The V280, which completed its first test flight in March 2019, has demonstrated its speed by flying above 300 knots, or 345 miles per hour, according to a statement released on Monday evening by Bell Textron. Sikorsky Boeing officials conducted a February 20th flight demo for Army leaders demonstrating the maneuverability of its X2 rotor technology. They said that we're confident we deliver a productable FLRAA aircraft that is survivable, affordable, sustainable, and provides Army aviators strategic day one battlefield advantages, Sikorsky Boeing officials said in a statement this week. The Army's FVL also includes an effort to develop the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft, or FARA. Officials are expected to down select two vendors to build the final prototypes for those this month. Now, I'll tell you, I've got to say, I think I prefer the V22 to that new V250, Armando.
I stopped paying attention in all the acronyms, Carlos.
Oh, okay.
Hang on,
No,
you can't do that. You pick the story. God's a bit like this segment is like when Carlos nods off mid-show. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, or he starts doing his online shopping.
Yeah, right. When he starts booking flights to exotic destinations.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is we've done stories on both of these aircraft, and what's new and unique about this story is that it's official now. So the Army has said, hey, these are the two choices to replace the Black Hawk, and it will be one of these two. Now, usually, so like we saw in the Air Force's competition for a light attack aircraft, the Tucano and the AT-6 are pretty similar airframes. The V280 and the SB-1, the Defiant, are very different airframes. So the coaxial design, that goes back to the earliest days of aviation. Yeah. If you look at some of the early videos of helicopter development, they were trying to figure out how to take care of the torque or negate the torque that is produced by a spinning wing or a rotor. So that coaxial design is actually 100 years old now, while the tilt rotor design in the V280 is a little bit more unique than the Osprey, in that only the propeller hub rotates up. The engine remains stationary. That is not the case in the Osprey. In the Osprey, the entire engine nacelle rotates. So it is. It's going to be interesting over the next couple of years to see which way they go. There's going to be, I bet you, number one is safety. Number two is maintenance costs. That's what's going to determine who wins this competition. So in the chat room, Tony asks, does the Army operate the V-22? And currently, no. It is only the Air Force and the Marine Corps, with the Marine Corps having the majority of the aircraft.
So now, next story featuring a rather interesting helicopter, one of those things that we all love. Helicopters. We know got some fans of helicopters who watch the show. Is all for you.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. It's on the popularmechanics.com website. It says on the 2nd of January 2020, the state of New South Wales declared a state of emergency as Australia's bushfires continued their deadly rampage. The next day, the Australian state former fire commissioner urged the Prime Minister to call in backup. The country needed more firebombers from North America and Europe. It seems a long time ago, doesn't it, this story, because events have overtaken all these things, it would seem. But nonetheless, one machine already hard at work was the S-64E air crane, operated by Oregon-based Ericsson. 6 of its huge helicopters had already been dousing the fires that put Australians and the continent's indigenous wildlife at risk. Flying against the fires in Australia, we've put more hours on the S-64s per week than we've seen in quite some time, says Jeff Baxter, who's the Director of Research and Development at Ericsson. With the help of these 6 air cranes, C-130s, 737 large air tankers, and some much-needed rain, Australia officially declared on February 28th that all fires had been extinguished in New South Wales after 240 days of fighting. But from the ashes came a harsh reality. As wildfires grow in frequency and intensity, air crews face increasing danger. A fact sadly confirmed when a C-130 crashed in New South Wales, killing 3 US firefighters in late January. That's why Ericsson is transforming its water-bombing helicopter into a robotic firefighter in an effort to fight fires both day and night and save the lives of future firefighting pilots. Long before the air crane was battling Australian bushfires, Sikorsky designed and manufactured the helicopter, then called the Sky Crane, which quickly found service in Vietnam by another name, the CH-54 Thai. During the war, the helicopter became best known for its dragonfly-like appearance and its ability to lift entire tanks and even 2 UH-1 Huey helicopters at once. After retiring from service, the helicopter went on to perform heavy lift missions in the military for another 20 years. And in 1992, Ericsson bought the S-64 manufacturing rights and renamed the helicopter the Air Crane. But its second career would prove even more vital. In the 58 years since the Sky Crane's first flight, fire seasons have lengthened across a quarter of Earth's vegetated surface, giving rise to about a 20% increase in the global length of the fire weather season. Only 50 S-64 helicopters remained operational worldwide. Sikorsky, in fact, only built 105 during the war, but wildfires continued flaring up with worrying regularity. When you fly over and put 2,000 gallons of water on fire, it's going to go out, says Baxter. And that kind of firefighting capability means that the air crane is in incredibly high demand around the world. In fact, Ericsson's CEO, Doug Kitani, told a crowd at the Helicopter Expo show in January that there are not enough aircraft to go around. So to meet this uptick in demand, Ericsson is looking to robots to become more efficient at fighting fires day or night. After all, fires don't sleep. However, one big problem is that the nighttime water bombing is a very dangerous thing to do on a forest fire, he says. Usually, firefighting pilots have to fly with night vision goggles, which often degrades depth perception, and air crews also need additional help from a dedicated guide helicopter. Whilst these night missions are technically possible, Ericsson doesn't want to take the risk, and that's where the Matrix comes in. Developed by Sikorsky, Matrix is an autonomous technology designed to take control of helicopters with no pilots required. Whilst Matrix's development began more than a decade ago, it wasn't until 2013 that a Sikorsky S-76 commercial helicopter flew with an early version of the system. During the test flight, the helicopter flew at full speed, avoiding obstacles, and even selected landing zones without pilot input. Fast forward to May 2019, and Sikorsky adopted a more advanced version of Matrix to a UH-60A Black Hawk, the Army's workhorse tactical helicopter. Earlier this year, Sikorsky and Ericsson agreed to bake the tech into a new version of the air crane, which was the S-64F Plus. The article is quite long, but I'm sure we're going to put this on our in the show notes so you can have a look at the whole thing. But it's a really interesting use of technology here. How they've decided that they actually need to take the pilots out of the equation in some of these situations because it's just too dangerous for them.
Do you know what? Helicopters baffle us at the best of times, but you must agree, Nev, that this is one of the most bizarre looking helicopters I think that exists,
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and this helicopter, the Sky Crane, can lift up to this new upgraded version 23,000 pounds of payload.
Wow.
So that's a lot of water. And when we, obviously we lost the Coulson crew out there in Australia, and that was an all hands on deck type effort where there was over 100 airplanes that deployed to Australia to fight those fires. And, there's always some goodness that comes out of some of these things, and the technology that is being developed. So Matt is currently playing out this video of what it looks like. This is from a C-130, and I believe this is an H model C-130 of what the conditions are like inside of those fires, inside of the clouds. It's just a big red glaze, and often these pilots are flying on night vision goggles in order to see through a little bit of the haze. So it's incredibly, probably some of the most challenging flying that you can do is fighting fires, and to have an unmanned capability with an aircraft that can lift 23,000 pounds of fire retardant or water is just a significant leap forward in firefighting capability.
Mm-hmm. So Armando, the last story. We like to always think that we are fairly green on this show. We like to recycle. I know that we always fill our blue bin up every week with plenty of recycling. But the next story, Armando, I think is puts a whole new ring to recycling within the aviation industry.
Yeah, it's a bizarre looking airplane, but apparently America's newest X-plane, which is a jet designed to fly quietly at supersonic speeds, will feature some familiar parts once it does take to the sky. The X-59 Quiet Supersonic Transport, or the QSST, is being built by NASA. It's featuring recycled parts from retired U.S. Air Force airplanes, including the F-16 Fighting Falcon. The QSST is part of an effort to develop commercial airliners of flying supersonic speeds without causing headaches for people living on the ground. This effort is called the Low Boom Flight Demonstrator Project. It is being run by NASA to create a plane capable of supersonic flight without rattling windows. In the late 1960s, the United States, the Soviet Union, the European Union, or Europe, embarked on efforts to build these supersonic commercial transports, as we saw from the John Hutchinson interviews. But the reason why these supersonic aircraft didn't take on is because of the noise. So the Concorde generated 105 perceived decibels on the ground when it was traveling at speeds above Mach 1. So the SST would have been noisy throughout its flight routes. The FAA banned commercial supersonic flight over land in 1972, effectively killing off American commercial supersonic industry, limiting the Concorde flights to major East Coast airports and over to Europe. So the Low Boom Flight Demonstrator Project hopes to revive this commercial supersonic ability by reducing the sonic boom. According to Lockheed Martin, it should fly at 55,000 feet at a speed of about 940 miles per hour and create a sound about as loud as a car door closing, or 75 perceived decibels instead of a sonic boom. So like all military articles, this one gets a little bit techie. It goes on. Go over to popularmechanics.com and check it out. But we've done a couple stories on the future of aviation, and this made it right here.
Someone doing the washing somewhere.
Some interesting sounds going on from the studio.
That's the best response I've gotten to a military story in a while. It's just the washing machine in the background.
I can only apologise. Sorry, I've had the touch screen go tech here in the studio, so I was just trying to sort that out. But I think it's sorted now. Has the noise disappeared now? Yes.
Yeah, you've finished tumble drying and clothes.
Yes, the listeners couldn't hear it because I'd shut the fader, so if nobody had said anything, then it would have been fine. But there we are, never mind. All part of fun.
It is. So, moving on to the next part of the show, and it's been absent for a while, but I'm very, very happy to say that it's back this week, so hand things over to Nev to introduce the next part of the show.
It is, and it's a Nev's passenger experience, but it's a different one. So we've got no intro music for this. This is my flight from Heathrow to Newcastle and back on Wednesday of this week. Now, this is normally a very busy time during the week. This is the, I'm just showing you here the Heathrow pod parking at Terminal 5, which is looking extremely empty. Okay, it was quite early on Wednesday morning, but it was very empty indeed.
Oh, there's the banana.
Hello.
Yes.
You want to go? You are going to Terminal 5. Please board your pod.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So we like the podule.
I remember this very well. Nev.
It's the highlight of the trip, really, as far as I'm concerned. And I took Liz on that as well, actually, when she came over. So she went for a ride on it and went back to the terminal, as you do. But it's a driverless thing. You can get about 5 people in there, I think. It works really well.
So
wind
is
shear.
Is it on rails, or is it like
No,
these Google cars where it's sort of
hovers?
It detects the sides of the running area, basically. So
wow.
Yeah, it's very good. So it takes about 5 minutes to go to the terminal. Normally there'd be a queue of people for that, but there's no one there at all. And equally, as it parks up in a minute and you get out of it, there's normally, I don't know, at least 6 or 7 people outside waiting to go into the lift. But as you can see from this, there is nobody at all. And it's about, 6:30 in the morning, something like that. So we go up to the 5th floor. Someone had a very noisy trolley next to me, and I was a bit cross about that. I was about to say something to them, say, "Come on, I'm trying to do."
Did they not know who you were, Nev?
Very poor,
come on.
Very poor. No, not.
I can remember this walk with you last year, Nev.
Look at the terminal. There is nobody. Ridiculous. Hardly anybody in there at all. And this would not. This would say first thing on a Wednesday morning, we'd be absolutely chock-a-block.
Terminal 5 at London Heathrow. So this isn't a regional airport. This is London Heathrow.
I know. Yes. So now we're coming downstairs where they have the A gates, and that's where all the duty-free shopping bit is, and all Thornton and Mason. You probably don't get that at Norwich Airport.
No.
Don't forget the Toblerones.
Absolutely, yes. But as you can see, once again, so I've gone through security, which took all of 2.5 minutes, obviously.
Yeah.
Nothing doing at all here whatsoever. Really, really surprising. And I thought, well, it's got to get busier, isn't it? So
as you get towards departure lounge and things like that.
Fast forward a little bit in a second, and we'll be going up.
In the chat room, Auntie Liz is. I don't know what this says about her visit to London, but apparently the trip to pod parking was the highlight of her trip. Apparently,
she's easy pleased though.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So we're coming up now into the lounge area, and we're just coming up to a piece of art on the left-hand side.
Oh, I remember this very well.
Be familiar with. I still don't understand what it's supposed to be.
There's a
or
horse
why
with
it's
a
there.
there's a horse with a lamp on its head. What?
Irregular. More importantly, though, there's an A380, so that's
Right.
more interesting.
Perfectly
So,
normal. Oh, hello.
This is the BA Lounge, the South
Ew.
Lounge. This is packed normally.
Oh, wow. Nev, when we were in there last year, that was absolutely rammed.
Oh yes, but nothing doing there. These are the FIDs, as they call it, the flight information displays. I don't mind portrait there because that's that's.
Well, no, that's all about useful data, isn't
look
it?
at all the red.
Yeah.
The red are all the cancelled
Cancellations.
flights that are going out just from T5, let alone the rest of the airport. So it's quite a big deal, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
Yeah, not good at all.
Oh, hello.
This is important, though. Bacon rolls and coffee. What a great start to the morning.
Yeah.
But I could have eaten more than that if I wanted to, because there was nobody else to stop me.
Well, no, quite. Oh, hello.
Anyway,
we're on board.
So eventually we got out onto the runway. This is 27 left, just lining up in our A320. But of course, we didn't have to wait for anybody because there was no delay in leaving the gate.
No flights. No.
We were down at the other end of the airfield where the T5 gates are.
Sorry to interrupt, Nev. Going back to our thing, to what we were talking about earlier, the main man that is Micah, he says everyone knows what that is. It's a horse that's had too much to drink at a party and has put a lampshade on its head.
I think that's quite reasonable. Yeah.
I think it's a fair analogy. Yeah, absolutely.
That can happen, can't it? And so here we are. We're off. I think.
So which runway was this?
27 left.
Yep.
So at the time that I left, they were still using both runways. This one for departures and 27 right for landing. But today I noticed watching some aviation stuff online that they were only using 09 right for takeoffs and landings. So they're already down to one runway. And look how quiet it is on the airfield. Lots of parked up aircraft facing the wrong direction. They're not about to take any passengers on board.
Now, you think what time of day that was when you, as you say, this really would be peak time, wouldn't it, for takeoff?
7:30 in the morning, so it'd be really, really busy. Lovely Staines reservoir as we go over it.
All bit cloud.
Again, we fast forward a little bit and we're now on approach to Newcastle Airport, crossing over the River Tyne.
So how long was the fog on the Tyne, in fact? How long was the flight? It's
only a 45-minute flight.
Right, okay.
It's not long distance or long time on the aircraft at all. Yeah. Again, just occasionally you might do one circuit of holding, possibly going into Newcastle. Again, if it's a really busy time. But of course, you haven't got Fly B anymore. So, that's just the A1 that we're going across, I think, and look how quiet that is.
It is again.
Yeah, that's the major arterial road.
So roughly, what time was this you were coming into Newcastle?
This is just before 8:30.
So as you say, the A1 should have been absolutely rammed like it is
You would
normally.
have thought
It's funny old times, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, really, really, really quiet. On my flight, there was about 70% full, I suppose, and the reason for that was because they had cancelled 3 flights. They normally fly 5 flights a day from Heathrow to Newcastle, but they were just down to 2, and they couldn't even fill those.
Wow.
Quite surprising in many respects, and the trouble is, all the crew, they've all had their roster messed up. They don't know where they're going to be because the changes in flight schedules, change of aircraft. I mean, BA are parking a lot of aircraft this weekend down at Bournemouth, I think it is, and Cardiff possibly as well. Not very clever at all. No. Just wondering how long we're going to be in this situation where, we're just not filling the flights at all. So, but let's have a listen to the announcement of the wonderful BA cabin crew.
Gentlemen, welcome to Newcastle. The time is 8:30. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the passenger bus signs have been switched off. When it's safe for you to leave your seats, take care when opening up the overhead lockers, as items may have moved around and could fall out and cause injury. Before leaving the aircraft, please make sure you have all your personal belongings with you, and remember that smoking is not allowed until you've reached a designated area. You You may now make and receive calls as well as use all data services on your handheld electronic devices. If you have requested additional assistance to leave the aircraft, then please remain seated until the aisle around you is clear so we can assist you further. All of us at British Airways and the One World Alliance would like to welcome home our customers who live here in Newcastle and wish those of you visiting an enjoyable stay. If you are travelling on further, we wish you a safe onward journey. On behalf of my team in the cabin this morning, it's been a real pleasure to look after you, and we hope to welcome you back again very soon. Thank you, and good morning to you all.
So, I mean, the most important question I have, obviously, is did you get any snacks or anything during the flight?
I didn't bother actually, no. But look at this. This is the main check-in desks at Newcastle just after I'd arrived.
So which airlines fly out of Newcastle normally? I mean, what?
Loganair, Jet2, Ryanair. Obviously, this is the Ryanair check-in area, as you can see. Not exactly overpopulated. Really, really surprising. And then, of course, I had to come back. So I thought, well, it's bound to be busier. No, this is the BA Lounge at Newcastle.
So this is Newcastle. Now this is where you were when you and Carlos had your little chat, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you got told off, didn't you? In there?
Yes, quite ironically.
Because you were making too much noise in a very, very dead.
Down a bit. I'm going. There's nobody else in the blasted lounge. But anyway,
go away. Neil Braden says apparently Emirates fly out of Newcastle as well.
Look at this person on the flight.
What?
I mean.
Now, you sent me this picture. I thought it was Nev being Nev, having found an online photo.
No, that was real.
What?
Hazmat action on a BA flight. I mean, whatever next. I'm
sorry. If you're that nervous about flying, I'm really sorry, but you shouldn't be on the damn flight. Do you know what I mean? Seriously. Let's spin this to like cabin crew for a moment. I mean, if you see something like that, you are cabin crew, right? And you see somebody sat there in a hazmat suit because they're I don't know. Maybe they're overreacting. Maybe they're not. I don't know. Perhaps he'll outlive us all. I don't know. But I mean, that can't feel great for cabin crew, passengers around you.
Yeah, I actually spoke to the cabin crew as I left the aircraft when we arrived at Heathrow. And I said to them, I'm sorry, I obviously didn't get the email about the fact it was fancy dress.
Love it. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
But they said that two separate people said to me that the cabin crew said they felt extremely intimidated and uncomfortable by seeing all that. And I'm absolutely with them as well. Absolutely extraordinary scenes, really. And then, just the plane was very, very quiet. I mean, again, it was probably half full on the way back, something like that. But again, people were very, very, I don't know, not nervous, but they were just extremely quiet.
Wary,
wary, I think I would say, yes.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of this thing is about this whole sort of social distancing, and bearing in mind it was a very quiet flight, so there was no reason why people couldn't give themselves a healthy distance between them and somebody around them. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the need for a hazmat suit is absolutely not a thing, is it? I mean, I could almost understand it if you were literally packed in like sardines in these heightened times, but I mean, honestly, it's just crazy, isn't it?
Well, it gets worse, of course, because with the slight disruption at Heathrow in terms of because they parked so many aircraft, that the regular domestic stand wasn't available. So we're coming into land on 27 left, which is the runway we took off on as well. And then we ended up on a remote stand, which does happen sometimes at T5, and they've got to then bust you back to the main terminal so that you get into the right part of the airport and that sort of stuff. And there's a picture coming up after we land of someone on the bus coming from the T5 remote stand back onto the domestic area. And again, speaking to some people on the bus, there was a lady from South Africa that I was speaking to. I mean, she looked very, very shocked indeed by the whole thing.
Really?
It was, I can honestly say, I mean, I won't say it's the worst flight I've ever had, because it's not quite right, but the worst flight for all the unusual reasons,
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, how did it make you feel, Nev? I mean, sort of being surrounded by essentially a Muppet.
As you know, I like a bit of a laugh.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
100%.
so obviously I started to see it as a bit of a comedy moment to begin with.
Yeah.
But when you realise that these people are serious, I'm trying to not be too disingenuous.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, I understand why people are concerned.
And then there's the picture of said person on
What?
On the,
So just describe it. She's basically wrapped herself up in what I can only describe as clear ponchos. She's got a face mask on. She's got plastic over her baseball cap. I mean, if you're that nervous about flying, I'm sorry, stay at home.
Yeah, extraordinary, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, that
Pod
was that.
time.
So we're now back onto the pod on my own. Luckily, I wasn't going to share it with anybody else.
Well, no, quite.
Yeah, good man.
So this is about
Social distancing. Yeah.
Quite. Yeah, it's about 6:00 in the evening now. Again, this would normally be a really, really busy time at the T5 pod parking, and once again, you can see very little in terms of cars in the car park.
Have you ever parked so close to the pod before?
Well, I always
that is Nev's parking space.
is it?
I remember that from last year.
I always like to put it on pole position if
Quite,
I can.
absolutely, yeah.
And people should know by now that that's where I'm parked. But yeah, it was a real eye opener. That has never happened before.
No.
And I think, well, goodness only knows what it's like now. It must be even worse.
Indeed. I mean, so in many ways a challenging flight, but I mean, of course now travel obviously has been sort of suspended, I guess, from a company point of view for the time being. I assume.
Oh yeah, I mean we've down tools in terms of travelling, so we're not permitted to travel on business for the company. On public transport of any sort, trains or planes. You can probably drive if you want to, but you're not really allowed to have interaction with people at the other end. So again, the world of Skype, Zoom, Teams, other video platforms has been the meeting of choice.
Well, in fact, actually, the legend that is the main man, Micah, he says many people are afraid that they're breathing recycled air when in an aircraft. They don't understand that it's actually fresh air that's being brought in all the time and very well filtered. So ironically, probably the best kind of air that you could be breathing as well. Now, Armando, you've added a comment there in the chat room. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, while that was playing out, we were commenting because those terminals are so empty and the seats, the seats are empty, the airplanes are empty, the lounges are empty. The question came up in the chat room, what do we anticipate is going to happen after this coronavirus crisis?
No, hang on, everyone grab a drink. Sorry, quick.
Yep, got a drink.
Cheers.
Get my...
As you were. Yes, sorry.
Obviously the short answer is we don't know, but it could go. I've seen a couple of articles online that we didn't really want to publish this week or talk about this week because we just don't know. But some people are speculating, some industry experts are speculating that ticket fares may skyrocket after this. Other people are speculating that the fares may stay low, that it's going to require some confidence building to get people back into the seats, which is where Micah's comment was addressing. People just aren't. They could be better educated about the quality of the air inside the airplanes. But regardless of what you think, the industry will look different. We've already lost a couple airlines after this. Crisis started, there's planes, hundreds, if not thousands of airplanes that are parked. There's thousands of pilots that, if not already, they will be out of work fairly soon. The longer this crisis goes on, that will all affect the industry. And it is purely my opinion that it's just going to look different after we come out of this, and whether that be 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now or 6 months from now, aviation in general is going to look a little bit different. And like every other time it's taken a hit, it'll probably bounce back. Our most recent Well, I guess, we took that hit after 9/11. The industry landscape changed after that. Then the financial crisis of 2008 really affected the industry. And then this one. But every time it's always bounced back.
Just one thing I would say as well is that, of course, the recovery times for these big moments, we'll talk about, think about 9/11, the financial crisis of 2006, 2007, the foot and mouth disease and all the rest of it. Yeah. These things don't come back quickly. And I was just thinking about a conversation I was having with one of my business colleagues today. If you think about the financial crash of 2006, 2007, it really took until 2010 at least to come back to the same level that it was when we left it. Yeah. So these recovery periods are quite long. They're not 12 months. No. They are up to 4 years or maybe longer. I'm just really worried about the recovery time of this situation because we just don't know what we're dealing with, really, I don't think.
Yeah, I actually, if I may, I'm going to just pick a few comments that are in the chat room here. Stephen Howland makes an interesting point here. He's saying, in his defence, now this is referring to the gentleman who was in his hazmat suit. Perhaps he had underlying health issues, which I guess is a concern. But then, if he has got underlying health issues, then perhaps he should have been self-isolating. I guess so.
Shouldn't be on the plane, frankly.
Well, yeah, there are sort of things that go along with that. The main man, Micah, he says, I truly believe that the business travel is going to fade because businesses will find out most things can now be done remotely. And of course, that's one of the really interesting things about this development. Of course, the last time that we had sort of not something quite to this, obviously we've never had anything quite to this extreme, but you think when we've had shutdowns and stuff before, of course, there wasn't the infrastructure like there is now for being able to host meetings via Zoom, via Skype, via FaceTime. I mean, the technology has really changed on. And of course, our ability to connect with the outside world now has really, really moved on. I mean, you think the kind of broadband speeds and stuff that we can get nowadays that weren't available if you go back to, say, like 2007, like you were saying. I mean, you had ISDN lines and things if you were a big business, but of course you didn't quite have the quality that you do now. I mean, obviously, Nev, you work in an industry, where you're supplying these solutions, if you like, to customers.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of companies. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Under normal circumstances, if business is good and everybody's doing well, face-to-face meetings are really valuable and they work really well. Now, some companies, maybe my one could be one of them, in 12 months' time might say, well, actually, this experiment has been so successful, we're now going to restrict you about how much you can travel. And I've not got a real problem with that argument, but I think it may well this one event, as big as it is, may well change
the industry,
the way we've been travelling.
Very much so. I mean, Tony S is saying here that there's also the environmental aspect. I agree, business travel will take a long-term hit. I mean, that it could be that. I mean, Greta will be thrilled, won't she? I mean, it's done wonders for our carbon footprint. Richard Adams, always the voice of reason here, is suggesting that perhaps we should switch to yachts. Perhaps it should be plain sailing UK from now on, which I think is a good point. Perhaps we're running out of aviation content fast, it has to be said. Nick Codling, welcome to the chat room. I know that Nick emailed us during the week and sort of finding out how he could sort of get involved in our chat room. And so Nick was saying, I feel like there's a lot of perceived prestige with business travel, and businesses like to face, which I agree with. Actually, sometimes you can get so much more done. You get a much better feel for the company if you're dealing with someone face to face, because it shows commitment. I think it'll drop initially, but recover after about 18 months. I think that's how I feel about it. If I'm honest with you.
Well, and that's a unique aspect to it too. I'm going to try to find some articles over the next couple of weeks, but strangely enough, Pip, Al, and I were talking on a private chat about business aviation. Yeah. Obviously, Pip and I are both in sort of that corporate business aviation world, and by and large, our numbers have stayed the same.
Right.
The business still has to happen, and as Nev was saying, sometimes there's no replacement for a face-to-face meeting or something like that. So a lot of companies are turning to corporate and business aviation to continue their travel as the airlines cut back. So an unexpected positive from this may be that business aviation gets a bit of a bump because of companies realizing, well, we can get there quicker, we can get there direct. We don't have any connections to make, and we don't have to go through the masses. I think, especially Pip, like I'd love to talk to him over the next couple of weeks about how his company is doing, and are they seeing a rise in sort of private business or
private airflow. Interestingly, the Airstig was saying that actually Oz only made it back to 2008 levels in February 2020, literally for a week before all this kicked in. But anyway, look, we could go on and on about this, but I think we probably shouldn't. We've gone massively over our time slot. There's been a lot to talk about. For a change. Now, so a couple of bits of business to talk about, and Carlos, I think your plan is to we're going to try and continue our little series of steady. Hello, Carlos knocked his microphone over then. Continue the little series where talking like behind the scenes, if you like, so talking to the host on a little Q&A on Facebook.
I think it's just good. With the way things are in the world at the moment, everyone's either stuck in at home or they're home 1 or 2 days a week stuck in. And it'd be nice for us to go have a live chat on Facebook just for 10, 15, 20 minutes on a day, and just have a one-on-one with us and all you guys out there in the world of Facebook as a listener. And you can ask, well, pretty much whatever you like, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we might not answer the question, but you could certainly ask it. Now, I think next up actually is Armando. You're taking the charge next, or on Wednesday, I think you are, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Wednesday, the 25th of March. We'll call it at 2000 UTC. I try to pick a time, so that's 4 p.m. Eastern U.S., 7 a.m. Sydney time. For our Aussies down there. So I just think it'll be a good chance for us to get to know each other. We're talking about social distancing, so we'll we'll try to get to know each other. I've always said that the reason I do this is because of the listeners, and I enjoy meeting listeners and getting to know them. And this is a good chance to get to know each one of us and our backgrounds, why we're doing this, or not. We could just talk about potato salad if you want to. But,
yeah. We like food. Food is the answer. Yeah. We're also toying with the idea, and if you're listening to this, obviously as a podcast, do please email us podcast@planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast@planetalkinguk.com. We're talking about doing a mass online meetup with everyone to talk about aviation, or as Armando says, like dinner, if you wish, just to try and because there are a lot of people, perhaps like me, who are feeling a little bit not in a good place, shall we say, off the back of what's happening, and so it gives you an opportunity to hang out with us, perhaps. So we're toying with the idea of basically us all getting together one day next week, maybe, to just have a big chat, and then I'll connect as many listeners as I possibly can together so we can all talk to each other, all hang out, as I say, because our studio is awesome. We've got so many facilities here, and we want to try and use it for the greater good. So we'd love to try
let's not forget that all this technology in the studio has been very kindly supported by
the community,
our Patreon people.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's a prime opportunity for our wonderful community to perhaps to join us all and just have a bit of a one-on-one chat as well. So so Armando's going to be doing a little bit of a Facebook Live on Wednesday. I mean, we were talking about. I mean, I don't know. Is there anything I can do really? I mean, I don't think anybody would be interested in finding out how I put the show together.
If anyone's got any questions at all about cheeses. Particular brands of cheese. Matt is the aficionado of cheese.
Yeah, absolutely. But
or how to do a first trip of the day walk round in a van who coach,
in a Van Hall coach. Yeah.
then you know where to come.
Not Van Tool then. Like,
No, I still think it's not. It does say Van Tool.
yeah, quite absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about sort of trying to make it more relevant to essentially, the podcast. So, I mean, if anybody's up for a guided tour around the studio and how it all works and stuff, I'm up for doing that if anybody wants. Also, as I say, genuinely, podcast at planetalkinguk.com. If you'd like to participate and get involved in a little bit of a massive online meetup, we can't go and do a public meetup, obviously, because of how the things are at the moment. But if you're all up for a big online meetup, then email the show, podcast at planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast at planetalkinguk.com. Depending on how many people reply, we'll decide what technology we do. But if you've registered your interest, we can then contact you directly, and we'll organise a bit of a coffee morning, shall we say? We all sit down and have a coffee together and just chew the fat. How does that sound? Should we do that?
Sounds like a damn good plan.
Yeah, excellent. Anyway, we're massively over our time, so Carlos, please do the socials, and it's time to wrap up.
So don't forget, you can contact the show via all the social media platforms, including our email address, podcast at planetalkinguk.com. Don't forget as well, you can send us your audio, pictures and video feedback to our WhatsApp number, +44 757 22 491 66. That's +44 757 22 49166. Send us your pictures, audio messages and videos through that number, and we can play them out on the show and make you a part of our live show. And don't forget to take yourself over to our website, www.planetalkinguk.com, and you can click on the tabs on there, find out more about us, and also you can click on the store where you can grab yourself a PTUK t-shirt, and also you can become a Patreon of the show and donate to the show and help to push us the way we go each week. And not forgetting as well, a big thanks to everyone who downloads the show each week via iTunes and all the other platforms as an audio podcast. Thanks to all you guys and girls as well.
Can I just say, sort of special mention also, we're seeing a huge rise in our YouTube likes and subscriptions. So from all of us, thank you so very much, because by subscribing you do get a push notification every time the show goes live, plus any content that we'll upload. As you say, it's brilliant. We're so pleased that the interest is really picking up. So guys, thank you so very much. It's nice to know that we've got lots of people to be sharing what we're doing with it. It's brilliant. It's a really good feeling in these otherwise horrible times.
So a quick round robin then. Armando, what's on the plans for next week?
Well, I actually have a work trip. So
what?
Sunday.
What?
Yeah. I've been off for a week. I have a 3-day trip.
Conferences.
No. I'll be fine. So I have a 3-day trip, or really 2.5-day trip, and then I'll be back home for almost another week. But that being said, I know it's a bit of a tumultuous time in aviation, in the transport, hospitality industries, and so many other industries. So, this is really going to be affecting the landscape of everything out there right now. So positive thoughts, good karma to everyone out there, everyone that's, going through good times and some hard times. But if you've got any ideas for the show, we'd love to.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And Nev, what's going on in the world of Nev Tech this week?
I've got this ringing in my ears from this Pratt & Whitney PW300. Can you just turn it down?
Yeah, I thought you were just having your hair done, Nev, I'll be honest.
That is actually the engine, well, one of the engines on the British Airways, or the Sun Air Dornier 328 that I came back from Denmark on. So that's a very nice aircraft, actually. Anyway, that's not answering the question, is it? I'm not doing very much next week. Oh, well, I'll tell you what I am doing. I'm on Monday morning, first thing, taking the Nev car
not the banana.
into a local place because it needs a bit of work done on the front wheel due to digging a curb.
Oh.
I was forced into a curb by a maniac BMW driver.
Oh dear. Okay.
What was he indicating there?
No, of course he wasn't. Don't be ridiculous.
So yeah, but that's about it actually. Apart from lots of video conferences and stuff for work next week, I'm going nowhere.
No, me neither, Nev. If I'm honest, find out on Monday what the plan is. Basically, we've got a big meeting on Monday, so we'll have an idea what the plan is, obviously, because as many of you know, obviously in the UK, schools and everything have all been shut, and what I do for a living is essentially take school children to and from school and do school trips in between. So obviously it's had a massive impact on my very wonderful boss, who I cannot imagine what my boss Lorraine is going through right now for a company that's been going for 114 years. This is unprecedented times, shall we say, and the worst thing of all is zero time to plan for it. This is the issue, isn't it? But so Lorraine, if you're watching, my heart goes out to you. I can't imagine what you're going through at the moment, but hopefully we'll find out very soon. But it's we just got to survive it all, haven't we, really, guys? I think that's all we've got to do.
Yep.
Very true, very true
indeed.
I shall be home Tuesday and Thursday next week. I will be working Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Okay.
And I'll be heading out to the shops to grab some more of these.
Buy more toilet rolls. Yes.
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
Anyway, on that bombshell, we've waffled on enough. Let's let these people have their evening back.
That's it then for episode number 310 of the show. Thank you to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room tonight, and to all the family members. Have a great weekend. And from me, Carlos here in the PTUK office, Matt in the PTUK studios, Armando in his studio across the pond, and Nev in the Nev Tech studios. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your Sunday roasts, and goodbye.
Everyone say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.